authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us, from personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation.
All right, we are live. Saturday, almost evening, Tea Talk Tribe. We are live with Tanisha Talks Teas. All right, I told you we was coming live, okay? All new, 2026 with new content, right? So we started off earlier with the Give Grace or Crash Out Waste episodes. We got 2 of those in. Make sure y'all go over and check those 2 episodes out. They are available now on all streaming platforms. Okay. Facebook Live, 20,000 in the building. Let's hit it. I need to see those likes, hearts, and follows on Facebook. Share this content. Twitch, we are live. All 2,000 of my Twitchers. How are you? Make sure you follow and like over on Twitch. And YouTubers, all my Tea Talk Tribe, we are live on YouTube. Let's get it. Right now, we're going to be talking about economy tea. Food stamps were a hand up starting out back like in the 60s when they were invented. But they seem to be a crisis now. Let's get into it. First, I want to start by letting you guys know we are promoting all of our workbooks. Okay, we got the self-care activities for women. Okay, slow down and reconnect with yourself, ladies. It is a beautiful pamphlet. All of my pamphlets are $12.50 plus $2.50 shipping and handling. Okay, so beautiful workbooks, right? Where you can learn stress management, work stress. You can get all types of powerful tips and tricks and how to challenge your negative thoughts, observing and describing emotions, beautiful spaces to fill them out, daily trackers of how you're coming along with your positive reinforcements. Okay, so that one is a self-care activities for women. We have the rebuilding self-worth, a journey to rediscover your self-worth, embrace self-compassion, and unlock your inner strength. Okay, women and girls, this is available now. Email me at tanishatalk@gmail.com. Okay, beautiful, colorful pictures. Understanding self-sabotage, connection between self-sabotage and self-worth. Okay, red flags, identifying self-sabotaging, what does that say? Behaviors, okay? Beautiful pictures, lots of different graphs. Building your self-identity. The Johari window and self-worth. Okay. Then we have All About Me, self-esteem, identity, and confidence bundle. Worksheets to assist you in discovering and exploring your self-identity. Okay? All about you. You are growing and improving every day. There are coloring pages. I value my own opinions and beliefs. Okay? I radiate positivity and attract wonderful opportunities. These are self-affirmations that you can tell yourself every day to get you going. To always knowing and believing that you are worth it. I am deserving of all the good things that come my way, right? So there are self-esteem journals, acts of kindness that you can do for yourself, places to write down 3 things you are grateful for, all of those beautiful things, okay? We also have a 2026 to 2028. This pamphlet is a 3-year agenda, okay? For 3 years, right? For you to take note and write down on these beautiful pages all of your life's business affairs, all of your tasks and to-do lists, all of the things you'd like to do, your ideas and your creative, energies flow right onto these pages. They are all available. I'm going to put my email down in the chat for you guys to email Tanisha Talk at gmail.com. Email me there. All of my workbooks for girls and women are available over in my email. They're $12.50 plus $2.50 shipping and handling. Okay. So if you're interested in self-improvement, women, self-healing, making sure that you journalize it, note it. If you want to give these out as gifts, keep them for yourselves, use them at your workshops or your girls' trips or however have you, they are available at tanishatalk at gmail.com for shipping in all the United States. So let's get going. We are talking about the food stamp situation that kicked off a couple months ago. So food stamps started in what year? Does anybody know when food stamps first initiated? When people first started getting food stamps? Okay. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program started May 16 of 1939. Okay. The Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly and colloquially still known as the Food Stamp Program or simply food stamps, it's a United States federal government program that provides food purchasing assistance for low and no income persons to help them maintain adequate nutrition and health. It's a federal aid program. Okay. So the history of food stamps, let's get into it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. The history of food stamps and where it goes from here. Okay, let's talk about it. Let me make sure you guys can also hear me on all social media platforms because we're gonna, probably deep dive into this one for a little bit. Lots of clips to go over, lots of things to, talk about. Probably deep dive into this one for a little bit from when the food stamps situation started a couple months ago. So, the history and ongoing changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, reflect evolving political priorities, economic needs, and debates on how to address hunger and poverty in the United States. Changes to SNAP and its predecessors have paralleled shifts in economic conditions and government priorities, illustrating how policies adapt over time to meet food insecurities and budgetary challenges. Okay, so federal and state roles, recent legislative changes propose increasing the financial responsibility of the states for SNAP administration, potentially impacting program accessibility and state participation. So what that means, right, is that what has happened? The federal government is taking some of the financial responsibility off of themselves and leaving it up to the said states to provide food stamps to its participants. Okay. The food stamp program in the United States began in 1939, helping millions during a period when there were both widespread unemployment and agricultural surplus. The modern food stamp system began with pilot programs under President John F. Kennedy in 1961 and became permanent under President Lyndon B. Johnson with the Food Stamp Act 30 something years later, so in 1964, okay, it became permanent. It began as a pilot program. Let's look up what a pilot program means, okay? A pilot program is a small scale preliminary test of a new project, hence the food stamp program, policy or product to evaluate its feasibility, effectiveness, and potential issues before a full scale launch, allowing for adjustments, data collection, and risk identification to ensure a smoother rollout with better outcomes. This was the initial understanding of how the food stamp program would be implemented. Okay. These programs, also known as feasibility studies or trials, okay, they're used across various sectors in the government. Now, that's what it initially started off being. 30 years later, from 1939 to 1964, it became a permanent program. SNAP and its predecessors have undergone frequent changes depending on economic conditions and presidential administrations, hence what we're going through now as a country under the administration of President Trump. Okay, so President Donald Trump has agreed to comply with court orders to partially fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the food benefit commonly known as SNAP, goes back nearly a century in the US. Overall, the number of Americans enrolled in the program has consistently gone up, with some up, up each decade. Okay, so it's significantly increased and consistently every decade, with some fluctuations at times. The first American food stamp program launched on May 16, 1939, with Maybelle Midfigan of Rochester. One second. Okay, that was somebody inquiring about the workbooks. Okay, you can order workbooks through my email currently at tanishatalk@gmail.com. All right. Sorry about that. Damn, I think I'm coming down a little cold, but however have you. So, over the next 4 years, that first program would help 20 million people in nearly half of this country. Okay, 20 million. That timing coincides with the end of the Great Depression and the start of World War II. At the same time, farms in the US were very productive and grew an excess of food. In the 1930s, they had a problem of surplus commodities because of the Depression and in the decline in the demand for food. Tracy Roof, an associate professor of political science at the University of Richmond, who's currently working on a book about the political history of food stamps, told Straight Arrow News, but you have starving people And so there was this outrage when they slaughtered a bunch of hogs and essentially burned meat and let it go to waste. And it led to a political push to create some kind of way to distribute that food to people in need. Okay, that's why this title of this show is called The Economy Tea. Every time I talk about the economy, that's what I'm going to headline it with. The economy tea, politics, what's going on in the economy, our people, social change, things that we want to work on. Okay. Food stamps were started as a hand up, to get people through the Depression, through the World War. To now, it's become a crisis. Okay. Excuse me. That program used color-coded stamps for every dollar worth of orange stamps purchased. 50 cents worth of blue stamps were given. Orange stamps could be used to purchase any food, similar to the SNAP program today. Blue stamps could only be used to purchase from the surplus, okay? It was a very popular program because it reserved a sense of decency, okay? Decency. Christopher Bosso, author of Why SNAP Works, A Political History and Defense of the Food Stamp Program, told Straight Arrow News that people were not standing in that line for a box of food. They were actively consumers and they had some choice of what they got. That program came to an end in 1943 since the conditions that brought the program into being unmarketable food surpluses and widespread unemployment no longer existed, according to the USDA website. Okay. So, birth of modern food stamps. The program, as Americans recognize it today, began in 1959 when Congress authorized the Secretary of Agriculture to operate a food stamp system through 1962. So from 1952 to 1962, okay, almost 10 years. However, former President Dwight D. Eisenhower never used that authority to launch the program. His successor, John F. Kennedy, used it immediately and made it a big part of his campaign, especially during stops in Appalachia. You have pockets of real poverty and need in Appalachia, in particular in the South and in the Delta and other areas, Bosso said. Okay. Kennedy's first executive order, issued upon taking office in 1961, called for expanded food distribution. Less than 2 weeks after his inauguration, he announced the launch of food stamp pilot programs. Again, that's that pilot programs. Remember what I said pilot programs were. Something to be a trial of some sort, okay, amongst a certain demographic group. It turned out to be very successful, and it was kind of based on the model we have today, Ruth said. You got an amount of food stamps that you were able to go into a store and purchase food, unlike the Great Depression era program. It didn't have to be surplus commodities. You know how when you go to, like, say, a food bank and they give you, like, what do they call those? Like TFAB products, like big cans of stuff, or like, powdery somethings, milk, eggs, however have you, cheeses, things like that. Those are commodities, right? That program then became permanent under Lyndon B. Johnson, Kennedy's successor, with the passage of the Food Stamp Act in 1964. So that's when they decided to make it permanent, when they saw that it was successful. People going into the stores feeling like, okay, they're having a more sense of, independence, going in the store instead of being given something, they could purchase something. Those days you would buy, say, $10 worth of food stamps, Bosso said, you would get another 4 in free food stamps. So it's effectively a 40% discount. And you would take your food stamps to the store and used them as currency to buy food. That was way back in the day. I'm going to bring up videos about that. We'll watch something about that to let you guys further know what that would look like for how you would kind of, in a sense, barter your food stamps. Okay. Big changes to food stamps. The food stamp program continued to expand for the next several decades under presidents like Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter. The latter's Food Stamp Act of 1977 eliminated the requirement for recipients to purchase food stamps. That's why that's not how it's done now, right? Okay, it's no longer done in that way. Ronald Reagan made significant reforms to the food stamp program, which reduced the amount of funding allocated. So people got less food stamps. The Food Stamp Act of 1985 made it more difficult. This would be our error. And most of my T-Talk tribes are between 35 and 55, some 65. Okay, so this would be around my generation. Made it more difficult to qualify for food stamps, requiring job searching and training as qualifications, a decision that sparked protests as it occurred during a recession. Okay, so here's a picture of Reagan. Baltimore demands restore and expand food stamp WIC school lunches, release the surplus food, hunger march, April 29th, All People's Congress. Okay. People with signs saying they need jobs, they need food, things like that. From an African American newspaper, okay? Reagan essentially throws in the towel on food stamps as the time goes on and basically comes to agree with Congress about stabilizing the food stamp program, Boso said. And you see a slow growth again in enrollment over the 1980s, okay? So, Reagan threw in the towel on reforming the food stamp program like Trump is doing now, right? Trump didn't throw in the towel. He went full throttle with reforming the food stamp program. However, back in the 80s, this is when it started to take a turn into a crisis situation for the government, okay? When Reagan threw in the towel and he agreed with Congress to stabilize the food stamp program, then that's when there was a slow growth again in people getting back onto food stamps. Okay. The Reagan years also brought about Electronic Benefit Transfer, or EBT. The Hunger Prevention Act of 1988 opened up their pilot programs that would eventually allow people to receive their benefits on a debit card instead of paper coupons. Okay. So, Bill Clinton signed a dramatic welfare reform bill in 1996 that had a large impact on the food stamp program. So here's Bill Clinton here signing the welfare reform bill. Okay. All the black people standing around smiling, all of that. All right. It caused a lot of changes at the state level in the way that they administered welfare, Ruth said. It also led to a lot of families falling off of food stamps. Okay. Those changes brought more disqualification provisions, time limits on how long beneficiaries could receive food stamps, and made most legal immigrants ineligible for the program. So it looks like here, back in 1996, it started to work again as far as reforming the food stamp program so that it just wasn't something that people were taking advantage of, making it a crisis for the government. Former Republican Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich proposed consolidating all nutrition programs into a block grant to states, a move his fellow Republicans deemed a step too far. So they went against the Republican House Newt Gingrich. I remember that name. Proposing consolidating all nutrition programs into a block grant to states. I'm believing that may mean so that food stamps are responsible for the state and not so much on the government like Trump is doing now. Okay. Americans may be ideologically opposed to welfare in some abstract sense, but they also don't want to see their fellow Americans go hungry. Bozo said. So, food stamps have always enjoyed a fair bit of bipartisan support over the years. So, bipartisan meaning split feelings about food stamps, okay? Split opinions, however have you, split bias, however have you. George W. Bush welcomed legal immigrants back to the program with the passage of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002. So, 6 years later, Bush officially renamed the program as the Supplemental Nutrition Act Program, or SNAP. So, SNAP was formerly now named SNAP in 2002 by George W. Bush. Okay. And let's deep dive into sipping this tea about why this would have happened. He would open up legal immigrants to the program because they were coming to the country and farming, basically getting the farms in the rural, helping build economies. And in doing so, they would qualify for food stamps. Okay. So the modern SNAP program. Then came the Great Recession again in 2008. The Great Recession hit, and the numbers really swelled. Ruth said a lot of states that hadn't taken advantage of these options because they wanted federal dollars coming into their states to help stimulate their economy during the recession. Okay. So a lot of states that, weren't really getting a lot of federal help now were when the Great Recession hit in 2008. Gingrich called former President Barack Obama the food stamp president. Although Obama did not make major changes to the program, other than increase in benefits towards the end of the Great Recession. So Obama essentially increased the amount of benefits a set amount of people can get in a family, in a household. Allotments increased again during Trump's first term. When the COVID, this must be when Trump was president once before, okay? After Barack Obama. Okay? So, when COVID-19 pandemic struck and governors across the country ordered non-essential workers to stay home and many businesses temporarily shut down, SNAP benefits went up to 40% after Trump signed the 2020 Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which temporarily expanded eligibility. Enrollment went up, Ruth said. It never went as high as it had been during the Great Recession, but the size of the benefit grew considerably. So, during the Great Recession was one of the highest peaks that they saw. People were on it. But the highest, like the thing that they were most concerned about wasn't how many people were on it. It was how much they were getting, right? Because the government was funding, this greater benefit amount that they were getting. Those enhanced benefits have since come to an end. Former President Joe Biden's biggest change came in an increase in payments to recipients after having the USDA reevaluate the plan. So during President Joe Biden's administration, they reevaluated SNAP food stamps, and they ended enhancing benefits. So even though the economy continued to inflate, the benefits did not. Okay. Big changes are coming once again following Trump's budget bill earlier this year. Since Kennedy's program began, the federal government has borne most of the financial burden of food stamps, with states only paying the administrative costs. That changes with the reforms in Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's going to start shifting some of the costs back to the states. The states are not prepared to absorb these costs, as we saw back when they were shutting down food stamps in November. Okay, yeah, we're gonna tap into all of that tonight. We're gonna sip a lot of tea tonight on the economy tea of food stamps. Okay, then it was a hand up. Now it seems to be a crisis for the government. Okay. So it's going to shift. Oh, I said that part. States will soon be required to pay 75% of the administrative costs, and states with high error rates like California, New York, where they had all that food stamp fraud and shit stuff going on, they're going to be paying subject to higher payments. Like you saw how New York rushed right in back in November when their food stamps were shut off, and they were like, "Well, we have the money. We're the richest state in the United States, so we have the money. Our people will not go hungry." And so they gave all of their New Yorkians their food stamp benefits. Well, that did not go unnoticed, and they will be required to pay 75% now of their administrative costs to fund their higher payouts in food stamps, because they're one of the higher economies to live in the United States, and they're going to have to eat that. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of states, I bet, basically say, well, this isn't worth it to us. Boso said the states may cut back on their efforts to enroll people who are otherwise eligible, or maybe decide to opt out entirely because it's not required that states participate. So let's understand this Tea Talk tribe, okay? The states are not obligated to give us food stamps. They're not obligated to pay people whatsoever. And I think that may also, apply to disabled people, seniors, so and so forth, have you. Okay? Because I don't see any clauses in here that say unless you're disabled or you're a senior citizen. It just says that the states are not required to participate in the SNAP program. Okay? Whatever direction food stamps take moving forward, both experts and spoke to agreed that the reason we have the program in the first place won't be going anywhere. Okay? They know that there's always going to be a need to feed people, like there's always going to be a need to house people, right? We're human beings. The first things we require are shelter and nourishment. Okay? So we're going to have people in need, just like I said. And everybody kind of thinks oftentimes that food banks can pick up that need, but they just do not. They're not equipped. Okay? So we saw the food banks try to do that. Unfortunately, it was a lot of people that were not able to get access, however, have you, and so forth and so on. Okay, so let's now look at food stamps. Let's go with the 50s. One second, let me share my screen.
That government benefit become the system people know today. The Trump administration is on track to institute some controversial changes to the country's food assistance program. But how did that government benefit become the system people know today? The country's food assistance is officially known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, but it's commonly referred to as food stamps, and that name derives from the early versions of the program that literally used stamps. The first food stamp program was started in 1939 to help address both widespread unemployment and food surpluses. Eligible families bought orange food stamps and used them to buy whatever food they wanted. For every $1 of orange stamps they purchased, they received 50 cents in blue stamps. The blue stamps could only be used to buy foods the government said were surplus. That program ended in 1943, and it was 18 years before the government started a food assistance program up again. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy launched a food stamp pilot program. It worked a lot like the previous one, since families still had to purchase food stamps. But the stamps became cheaper. For example, a family that paid $22 for food stamps would receive $62 in vouchers. The Kennedy pilot program was tested in select regions around the country. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Food Stamp Act, making the program permanent. Various laws have modified it since then, changing the eligibility guidelines, work requirements, or funding levels. Notably, in 1977, under President Jimmy Carter, Congress eliminated the purchase requirement, which meant the government started distributing food stamps to eligible families for free. Today, families get their SNAP benefits delivered electronically into an account they use like a debit card. They can buy foods like fruits, vegetables, meat, bread, cereal, and snacks. But the benefits can't be used to buy alcohol, vitamins or supplements, prepared foods, or household products like cleaning supplies or pet food.
All right, we're going to keep it moving. Remember, like and subscribe and drop those teacups down in the chat.
If we didn't have to pay for them, I'd...
And I'll just ask you a few questions. Tell me,
The month up here in the north, first of all, don't buy much to begin with. But when you take a big family and you use money wisely, it can hurt you greatly.
We shop sale.
what are you going to have to give up with $60 a month less? What will you give up when you go to the grocery store, for example?
Well, I couldn't buy as much meat as I do. On my table than usual. And when you got hungry kids to feed, you know, a lot of the younger children, they don't understand just how much you have to sacrifice for it.
How do your children feel?
Vera Watson's been eligible for food stamps for a long time, but with more than half of her $120 a month welfare check going for rented utilities, until now she hasn't been able to afford the $72 to buy the stamps.
I think that would be just fantastic, if we didn't have to pay for them. We could take $72 and go somewhere, and that'll buy a lot of...
I don't know what happened to the video, but we can still listen. Thank you, Tea Talk Tribe. Drop those teacups in the chat.
Shoes for my kids, a lot of clothes for them,
Vera Watson is one of an estimated 2 million poor people, most of them in the South, who will benefit from the new legislation and become a food stamp user. Albert and Dolores Matika of Kendall Park, New Jersey, would not benefit. On welfare because of his injury and layoff, the Matikas and their 6 children face a $60 cut in food stamps.
I mean, $60 a month up here in the north, first of all, don't buy much to begin with. But when you take a big family and you use money wisely, it can hurt you greatly.
It costs more to live in the North, and even though the new bill has a provision to help people with high rent and utilities, it's not enough to help people like the Matikas, who pay $350 a month rent, significantly more than what it costs in the South. Even with other provisions to offset higher living costs, 1.5 million people would be eliminated from the program, and almost 4.5 million would have their benefits reduced.
It's going to be a lot less on my table than usual. And when you got hungry kids to feed, you know, a lot of the younger children, they don't understand just how much you have to sacrifice for it.
Herbert Kaplow, ABC News.
Y'all want to stay and hold your time?
This is what this is. You gave Elizabeth 13 minutes to the welfare department last week concerning the video.
So what do we see here, T-Talk Tribe? We see a mixture, right? We see a mixture of black and white people. Okay, on my channel, we are not going to, what's the word I'm looking for? Segregate, who's on these benefits, because we know who's on these benefits. Everybody getting food stamps. Everybody. T-Talk Tribe. Drop those teacups in the chat. Thanks for being here. Come on back. Now, granted, you do see more black people protesting. Why? Because benefits are not always as accessible for us. Okay, we do go through a lot of, changes to get benefits. We do as black people.
Y'all be sure you
I'm gonna drop a little tea here. Have you ever been in need of a government assistance program and been somewhere in one of the housing authorities or food stamp offices, and you can see a white woman go and talk about why she needs food stamps and get her benefit or get her housing or get her need met with very little or minimal questions asked, whereas a minority may have more difficulty and or challenges to support why they need the said benefit. Drop your tea in the chat. I am here to, sip the tea and talk about it all. Let's go. There is a police presence there. Do you notice how he's just skipping to the doodah? he's not somewhere having to police so strong as he does today. Today, we are showing out at said places to attempt to get our needs met. We are cussing, we are fussing, we are fighting, we are going to jail. Okay? Whereas then, you even got small children carrying signs, protesting politely, peacefully, to get their needs met. Today is a different scene. Look at the police present. It's civil. It's peaceful. It's not a lot of need. This is in 1977 in Atlanta. Okay. It's not so much of a force of the police having to, stop fights and stop people from, stepping over each other and, such said situations happen. And I wonder why that is. Okay. Why are we now today so up in arms about our benefits? And we're going to get all into it. We're going to be here a minute. We're going to unpack or sip all of this tea. Okay. We're going to pour all of this tea and sip it to get up to date to where we are today with how we are going about dealing with the food stamp prices.
130, 95, 260, 57, 274, 270,
Same name.
278. You want them to look back?
29, 30. That's 40, 2, 4, 6, and 48.
Can you imagine if today you had to buy your food stamps? Because that is what I just saw this Black woman do. She went in, she gave him money, and he gave her a couple books of food stamps. Would we today, let me drop that in the chat. Would we today buy food stamps if we had to? Would you take $100 to get $200 of food stamps, or however the system was working? Would we do that today?
40 is 9.
What's your name? Okay, sign down at the bottom.
You're welcome.
Okay, so comments are saying, I've been watching your videos, Wait a minute, they had to pay for food stamps. No wonder my mother got off welfare when I was born in the 70s. This is something new to me. Never knew they had to pay for food stamps. That's the South that was paying for stamps. You had to pay for stamps. Okay, if they did that today, a lot of people would rethink their behavior. Nope, you to the welfare office and got an application, and you had get family and friends to fill out collateral statements stating that you're telling the truth. Okay, so those are some comments from that video.
To many Americans, the welfare rolls are saturated with lazy people who would rather sit back and take it easy while hard-working taxpayers foot the bill. To those who believe in the great American dream that every man can pull himself up by his own bootstraps, the solution to the welfare problem is primarily a matter of taking people off the welfare rolls and putting them on the payrolls. What is fact? What is myth? Who are these people on welfare? And what changes are needed in our welfare system?
I don't want welfare to support me. I want welfare to find a job for me, a job where I can work and make a living on my own.
This is the public hearing held in March of this year in Fresno, California, the richest agricultural county in the world.
So this is listened to Americans on welfare in 1970. It only got worse.
Are you employed?
No, I'm not.
When were you last employed?
It was in 1958.
What brought your work to an end?
I became disabled. In 1954, I fell off a ladder working out on the ranch.
I go into debt in wintertime and work. My wife and I work in summertime to pay off those debts, and then the cycle's just over and over. Hard times come again, we go in debt again, and so on. Same thing. It's just a cycle. If I ever applied for welfare in my whole lifetime, must have been about twice or three times in my lifetime that I remember, and that was because I really had to.
In other words, it goes against your grain to take welfare?
No, I don't like that. I don't like to go before the welfare department and beg for food. No, sir, I never did like that. I've had all the chance in the world to become a #1 beggar, but we don't do that.
What makes you feel like you're begging when you go in there?
Look, lady, I don't know if you ever begged for food yet or not, but I'm going to tell you. When you go to the welfare department, these people are ready for you. In fact, they're hostile.
Why do they discriminate us by saying the Mexicans are getting welfare, the poor people is getting welfare? Why don't they turn around and say the grower is getting welfare? And he is getting it on a bigger basis, because this son of a gun, year after year, will be getting millions of dollars out of the government because they didn't work the land or this or that. Here, Mr. So-and-so, here's so many millions. But that's called something different. That doesn't call welfare, even if that's the real word for that. But no, they rather discriminate us than the Mr. Grower.
Last year, farmers in this area were subsidized in excess of $60 million so they wouldn't plant something. They received also, God knows how much, for technological studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara, at Davis, and so on and so forth, to create machineries to put these people out of a job.
The American people voice little objection to their tax dollars being used for business subsidies, but cry out loudly against welfare grants. Could the reason be that welfare receives an imbalance of the attention and publicity? Or is there a basic resentment against the poor? Can it be that many hard-working Americans resent the fact that welfare recipients seem to be getting something for nothing?
People do have to stand in lines. We do get very busy. We do have long federal, state, and county forms to fill out, which ask every question from when you last clipped your toenails on up. This is unfortunate.
In some states, a single aged person can receive a larger grant than an unemployed mother with 3 children. And in no state is assistance given to the working poor.
We don't have anything. We work out on a farm. I have to pay income tax. I have to miss meal to pay that.
I am a human being as well as the next person. I like to be treated as a human being. I like to be talked to as a human being. And I don't know very many people that tries to get on the welfare too. That's usually the last resort. If you get the feeling that your interviewer is getting the money out of his pocket to hand you, and you know about just how you'd feel about giving me $35, $40 a month out of your own pocket, your own earnings, you'd be hesitant about it, and it seems that that's the way they seem to do it.
But under the law, you are just as much entitled, under certain circumstances, to this money as they are to their salary. There's no difference. And people should understand that.
Yeah, Your Honor, I understand you, but I don't think you understand me. We understand that, and we feel that way about it. But it seems as though to me, maybe I'm wrong, it would be better, maybe we should have a commission with them. I mean, like you people are with us, they should have a commission to explain it to them that the money don't come out of their pocket. Now, we understand you. I do.
All right. That's some tea to sip. Have you ever been somewhere and, have had a need for something of a service, and they treated you as if it was something that they were giving to you and not something that they were hired to do, to give to you under your economical circumstance? Drop some tea in the chat if you've ever had that experience. Remember, like and subscribe, and also drop those teacups. Today we're sipping tea on everything in the economy on food stamps. Let's go.
So that is a problem. But thank you so much for trying.
In the 1964 presidential campaign, Senator Goldwater had a particularly rousing rally in Odessa, Texas, an arid area noted for its rich petroleum deposits and conservative politics. Asked how he felt the evening had gone, Goldwater said, "Great, these are my kind of people. They came out here, they worked hard, and they struck oil." The senator was not joking. He reflected the time-honored American tradition which has enshrined hard work as a noble exercise producing indubitably the rewards of success. The trouble is that not every conscientious toiler is fortunate enough to strike oil. Millions have labored a lifetime with little more to show for it than a mortgage and a heart attack. Gradually, American society is beginning to concede that some jobs can be demeaning and that luck and ruthlessness can have a lot to do with success. Gradually, we are beginning to realize that people are not always to blame for their own misfortunes, that a man is not necessarily a sinner just because he is unemployed. Plainly, society has an obligation to the poor that goes beyond charity. Clearly, welfare, as now operated, is not the answer. But unsurprisingly, President Nixon is finding performance harder than his campaign promise to get people off welfare rolls and onto payrolls. The harsh fact is that countless welfare cases are simply not salvageable. Much of this is due to past neglect, seated in the ridiculous American dream fantasy that everybody can make it to the top if he'll only try. The idea is not to rob the old to reimburse the young. Millions of senior citizens are having it rough enough as it is. But a more equitable balance needs to be struck. It's time this civilized nation, so-called, checked its own mental retardation in its savage handling of the plight of the poor.
All right, up next.
Eve to me is...
We're just going to keep, moving through these videos to continue to get understanding on what we got going on. Okay. So we're not going to deep dive into that.
The year was 1939. The world was on the brink of monumental change, with World War II looming on the horizon. But in America, a different kind of battle was being fought, a battle against hunger and economic despair. America was struggling to emerge from the Great Depression. The stock market crash of 1929 had left deep scars on the nation's economy, and by 1939, the effects were still being felt. Bread lines and soup kitchens were common sights in cities and towns across the country. Millions were unemployed, struggling to put food on the table. Families were torn apart by the stress of financial instability, and the American dream seemed like a distant memory for many. The government knew it had to act to prevent further suffering and social unrest. In response to this crisis, the government launched the first food stamp program. This initiative was part of a broader effort to provide relief and stimulate the economy. It was a bold experiment aimed at addressing both the immediate needs of the hungry and the long-term health of the
Okay, like I said, food stamps started as a project, okay, an experiment.
agricultural sector. It was a simple idea: help farmers sell surplus food and help hungry families eat. The program was designed to create a win-win situation. Farmers would have a market for their excess produce, and struggling families would have access to nutritious food. This early program was as much about supporting agriculture as it was about alleviating hunger. The agricultural sector had been hit hard by the Depression, with prices plummeting and many farmers facing bankruptcy. The food stamp program offered a lifeline to these farmers, providing them with a steady demand for their products. Farmers, hit hard by the Depression, found a new market for their produce. This not only helped to stabilize their incomes, but also ensured that food did not go to waste. The program encouraged farmers to continue producing, knowing that there would be a market for their goods. Families, in turn, received assistance in purchasing essential food items. For many, this was the difference between going hungry and having a meal on. Fresh produce, dairy products, or other essentials. For every $1 of orange stamps purchased, families received blue stamps for free. These blue stamps were specifically designated for surplus foods, which helped to clear out excess stock and support the agricultural sector. These blue stamps could be used to purchase designated surplus foods. This ensured that surplus agricultural products were distributed to those who needed them most, reducing waste and providing essential nutrition to struggling families. This dual stamp approach aimed to stimulate agricultural demand, while also targeting assistance to those most in need. It was a carefully balanced system that sought to address multiple issues simultaneously, from economic instability to food insecurity. The initial program, though limited in scope, laid the groundwork for the more comprehensive food assistance programs that would follow. It was a pioneering effort that demonstrated the power of government intervention in addressing social and economic challenges. The legacy of the 1939 food stamp program can still be seen today in the modern Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which continues to provide vital support to millions of Americans. The primary goal of the food stamp program was...
All right, listen in close, T-Talk Tribe. This was the initial agenda for the food stamp, okay?
Was straightforward to combat hunger. This initiative was born out of a pressing need to address the widespread food insecurity that plagued the nation, particularly during times of economic hardship. The government recognized that ensuring access to food was not just a matter of charity, but a fundamental responsibility to its citizens. The Great Depression had exposed the vulnerability of millions of Americans to food insecurity. Long lines at soup kitchens and bread lines became a common sight, highlighting the dire need for a more structured and reliable system of food assistance. The economic collapse left many families struggling to put food on the table, and the government had to step in to provide relief. The program aimed to provide a safety net, ensuring that even those with limited income could access basic nutrition. This safety net was crucial in preventing malnutrition and starvation among the most vulnerable populations. By distributing food stamps, the government could directly support those in need, allowing them to purchase food with dignity and autonomy. Beyond addressing...
So my husband wanted to make sure I didn't get famine while I'm in here talking about food stamps, and he brought me a hoagie with chips. Thank you, sweetie.
Immediate hunger, the program also sought to improve the health and well-being of low-income families. Access to nutritious food is a cornerstone of good health, and the food stamp program aimed to ensure that even the poorest families could afford healthy meals. This focus on nutrition was particularly important for children, whose development and future prospects could be severely impacted by poor diet. By providing access to nutritious food, the program aimed to reduce malnutrition.
As we see, we do not just see, for this example in this picture, there's a white girl, there's a minority girl, there's a black boy, okay? Food stamps are not just for a color, they're for everybody that is in need, okay? Food stamps are not, hunger has no color barrier, okay? Anybody of any nationality, of any race, can be impacted by the economy at any given moment and be in need of relief.
Nutrition and diet-related health problems, particularly among children. School lunch programs and other initiatives were introduced to ensure that children received at least one healthy meal a day. This not only helped in their physical development, but also improved their ability to learn and succeed in school. Furthermore, the program was designed to stabilize the agricultural sector. Farmers often faced the challenge of surplus produce, which could lead to financial losses and wasted food. By purchasing this surplus, the government could support farmers economically while also redirecting the food to those in need. By creating a market for surplus food, the government hoped to support farmers and prevent food waste. This approach not only helped to stabilize prices and incomes for farmers, but also ensured that excess food did not go to waste. It was a win-win situation, benefiting both the agricultural sector and the hungry. This dual focus on hunger relief and agricultural support characterized the early years of the food stamp program. The program was a pioneering effort to address multiple social issues simultaneously, recognizing that food security and agricultural stability were deeply interconnected. The program represented a significant step towards a more compassionate society, acknowledging the government's role in ensuring the well-being of its most vulnerable citizens. It was a recognition that in a prosperous nation no one should go hungry, and that the government had a duty to provide for those who could not provide for themselves. It embodied the belief that access to food is a fundamental right, essential for human dignity and societal progress. The food stamp program was more than just a means of providing food. It was a statement of values, a commitment to ensuring that all citizens had the opportunity to lead healthy, productive lives. This belief continues to underpin food assistance programs today, as we strive to create a society where no one is left behind. The early food stamp program, with its distinctive orange and blue stamps, underwent significant changes over the decades, adapting to the needs of the times. In the 1970s, the paper coupon system was gradually phased out and replaced with electronic benefits transfer, or EBT cards, marking a new era. These EBT cards, resembling debit cards, revolutionized the way beneficiaries received and used their food assistance, making the process more efficient. Gone were the days of carrying around cumbersome books of coupons. The EBT cards offered greater convenience and discretion, reducing the stigma often associated with receiving government assistance and making life easier. The shift to EBT cards also improved program administration, making it more efficient and reliable. It streamlined the distribution of benefits, reduced paperwork, and made it easier to track spending patterns, enhancing overall transparency. This technological advancement marked a major milestone in the evolution of the food stamp program, reflecting progress and innovation. Over the years, the food stamp program, now known as the
Now we're going to get into how food stamps can combat poverty.
Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, has grown significantly. Originally established in the 1960s, the program aimed to address hunger and malnutrition in the United States. It has since evolved to become one of the most critical components of the social safety net, adapting to the changing needs of society and the economy. The transformation from paper stamps to electronic benefit transfer, EBT cards, has modernized the program, making it more efficient and accessible for recipients. Today, it serves as a vital safety net for millions of Americans struggling with poverty and food insecurity. The program reaches a diverse group of people, including working families, the unemployed, and those who are unable to work due to various reasons. In times of economic downturns, such as the Great Recession or the COVID-19 pandemic, SNAP has proven to be an essential resource, providing timely assistance to those in need. SNAP benefits provide crucial support to low-income families, ensuring they have access to basic nutrition. This support is not just about feeding people, it's about giving them the opportunity to lead healthier, more productive lives. Proper nutrition is fundamental to physical and mental well-being, and SNAP helps bridge the gap for those who might otherwise go without. Seniors living on fixed incomes and individuals with disabilities are among the most vulnerable populations that benefit from SNAP. For many elderly individuals, Social Security benefits are not enough to cover all their expenses, and SNAP helps them afford nutritious food. Similarly, people with disabilities often face additional financial burdens, and SNAP provides a critical lifeline. By supplementing their food budgets, SNAP helps these vulnerable populations afford the nutritious food they need to thrive. Access to fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains and proteins is essential for maintaining good health, and SNAP ensures that recipients can make healthier food choices. This, in turn, can lead to better health outcomes and reduced healthcare costs in the long run. Research consistently shows that SNAP lifts millions of people out of poverty each year. Studies have demonstrated that the program not only reduces food insecurity, but also has a positive impact on overall economic stability for low-income households. By providing a reliable source of food assistance, SNAP helps families avoid the difficult trade-offs between paying for food and other essential expenses. It provides a much-needed financial cushion, freeing up limited resources so families can afford other essentials like housing, healthcare, and transportation. This financial flexibility is crucial for improving the quality of life for low-income families, allowing them to invest in their future and break the cycle of poverty. Moreover, SNAP benefits ripple through the economy, stimulating local businesses and supporting job creation. When recipients use their benefits to purchase food, they are not only feeding their families, but also supporting the livelihoods of farmers, grocery store workers, and other food industry employees. When SNAP recipients spend their benefits, they inject money into grocery stores and farmers' markets, bolstering economic activity in communities across the nation. This economic boost can lead to more robust local economies, creating a positive feedback loop that benefits everyone. In essence, SNAP is not just a program for those in need, it is a vital part of the economic fabric of the United States, helping to build stronger, healthier communities.
All right, that was a dive into more understanding of how food stamps came into existence and what the real nature of them were intended to be. There are no comments on that video. However, we're going to keep things rolling. Let's move it on up to the 80s, okay? We're going to just go through the generations here and see how over time food stamps evolved to get to where we are today in 2025, okay?
CBS News in Washington, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. President Reagan devoted little of his State of the Union address to foreign relations, but in an interview with him this afternoon, he expanded on that subject. The president denied that his increase in defense spending would fuel inflation further down the road. He believes that by this time next year, interest rates will have dropped and that unemployment will have declined too. As for the current estimated budget deficit of $90 to $100 billion, that hasn't changed the president's basic optimism about the future of the economy.
We've had a setback because of the recession, but our own estimates of deficits, starting with the present year, show a continuing decline of roughly around $10 billion a year in those deficits. While I have to project, when I deliver my budget message, deficits for the next 5 years, I don't believe what I'm saying. And I don't think any economist will argue with this fact that there are so many imponderables that no one can properly project more than the immediate year in advance.
Our most recent poll, when black Americans were asked whether they thought you cared a great deal about the needs and problems of poor people, 0% said they thought that you cared a great deal about the needs and problems of the poor. Now, let's set aside what you've done or have not done. Do you think that you need to do something that blacks will perceive as being positive for them?
I don't know whether they would hear about it. I think there has been a kind of image building about me that I am hard-hearted and also that there's a tinge of racism and so forth. I will admit there are some leaders, various organizations out there that sound a trumpet call of hatred, if you want.
That conversation with the president will be broadcast in more detail tonight at 8 o'clock, 7 Central Time.
President Reagan wants to cut food stamps for Puerto Rico by more than they would be cut for mainland residents, and he wants cuts in other aid programs affecting the island. Puerto Rico's governor told Congress yesterday that would mean disaster. Bruce Hall heard similar warnings from others in Puerto Rico.
Food stamps have become a new kind of national currency in Puerto Rico. Nearly 60% of the people here use them. But the Reagan administration wants to cut all food programs in Puerto Rico by 25%. Misa Espinol says the reduction of 1/4 of her food stamps would make it impossible to continue feeding her 5 children on what she makes now as a clerk.
I think I'm going to have to get 2 jobs to support my kids.
But even getting and holding one job is difficult. Unemployment is 19% and rising. A $650 million cutback in U.S.-funded social service programs is expected to eliminate 25,000 jobs. 15,000 more jobs would be lost by the elimination of most federally funded construction projects. After the cuts, officials say the unemployment rate could rise to between 30 and 40%.
It's a beautiful island, but there's no jobs, there's no money.
Frank Medina is one of San Juan's poor. Over half of the population in Puerto Rico live below the federally defined poverty level of about $7,500 for a family of 4. Many live in crowded ghetto-like conditions. Most are unskilled, poorly educated, and increasingly frustrated.
You have to eat, you know, and sometimes you don't have a buck in your pocket and you do anything to make a buck. It comes a time that you'll even have to rob. It's gonna be a lot of more robberies. It's gonna be a lot of, hold-ups, like tourist people.
I tell you, if they take the stamps away, I'll get my $258 back to Los Angeles, and I'll stay in L.A. In L.A. you can make it. Even if you don't work, you can make it.
Sandra Dominguez would not be alone. It is estimated that 500,000 people would leave this tropical island for the U.S. mainland, where they would qualify for federal programs under revenue sharing and some Social Security benefits, which Puerto Ricans do not receive.
Island leaders are concerned that the budget cuts will also provide a boost for the small but highly vocal leftist organizations who want to turn Puerto Rico into another Cuba.
So, a lot of the thinking that is going on today in 2025 was going on back in the 80s. Did you hear her say she would go back to California from Puerto Rico if they stopped the food stamp benefits so she could collect her benefits? She said, even if you don't work in the United States, you can make it. Even if you don't work, you can make it in the United States. Same logics are applying today as we're hearing go on from the 80s. Remember, drop those teacups in the chat. Let me know where you sit with the food stamp situations. We're starting all the way from the top to now. Tanisha Talks Teas. Let's go.
Bruce Hall, CBS News, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
What if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix, you can.
Now 17.
The Supreme Court ruled today that children of illegal aliens may not be denied a free public education. The vote was 5-4. Fred Graham has more.
School districts in many parts of the country say they're being pinched financially by the growing
epidemic.
From repossessed farms to shuttered factories, many Americans are refugees of recession. The ranks of the hungry growing by 1 million a year. In New Orleans, many patients in children's hospitals suffer malnutrition from disease, others from lack of food.
Sometimes if family give them the right diet, they still don't gain weight, and then someone will walk into the room and find out the parents are eating the child's tray because they don't have enough food at home, or and then they eat the child's food, and we think they're getting the calories, and they're not. Okay, I'll go on.
These children do not have the same IQ. They are more disruptive in school. They're less well behaved. There's a significant impact as far as the development is concerned.
You don't often hear about hungry children in the U.S. starving to death. That's because disease kills them first. Malnutrition weakens the immune system, so these children often die of infections like pneumonia or the measles. It is a toll that is growing as hunger spreads. Today in New Orleans, half the residents are on food stamps. You got 1 can of beans, can of carrots. Patricia Delmore tries to feed 3 daughters on food stamps, but like most families, she finds the monthly stamps last only about 3 weeks. You are out of food.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do if it wasn't for the food bank?
I don't know what I'd do. Starve, I guess.
Emergency food banks help, but most are so strapped themselves, recipients are allowed to come back only once every 3 months.
That's the food bank's procedure.
Does that...
Wow. What a big difference from the 80s until 2025. A lot of our food banks today, you can go back several times a week. A week.
Even begin to cover the problem?
No, I would say that people are pretty much in crisis on an ongoing basis.
A crisis growing larger as government budgets fall farther behind.
We're missing, for example, about 40% of the poor with the food stamp program. We're missing 60 to 70% of children who need the school breakfast program. This is why we have hunger in America.
At night, Jeff and Dee prepare their first meal of the day. This month's food stamp groceries are in their 3rd and final week.
When Jeff and I go without, we hit bed early and try not to think about ourselves.
We always get a glass of milk. If we're out of milk, we don't get anything but a glass of water. But to me, I don't like that 4th week. I hate the 4th week.
This month, the 4th week includes Christmas.
And I see not a lot has changed. Okay? I see a lot of people misappropriate their food stamps, not saying that that's what we used to do back in the 80s. I think that they just weren't getting enough in the 80s to the ratio of the people in the family, because my mother, which is me, whenever she needed food stamps, she never ran out of food stamps. She always had enough food stamps to cover the entire month. So also my mother knew how to budget, so she never had those problems. However, same things applying today. I know a lot of people that 3rd, 4th week in the month, they are out of food stamps.
Shelley is asking Santa to help Somalia, even as her own family joins the quiet struggle with hunger at home. In Moline, Illinois, Scott Pelley for Eye on America.
In Robert Frost's poem, Death of the Hired Man, a husband and wife have a conversation.
A lot of people are going to get hurt. A lot of people are going to die from it.
Dr. Michael Smith is on the same medical team.
Do the food stamps that you get now last you for the month?
Another member is Dr. Deborah Prothrow-Stitt.
They don't.
Well, it's going right now. I just wonder if it's even going to be able to get through the winter.
Are you? What do you do? Dr. Larry Brown of Harvard's School of Public Health is the chairman of the doctors group, which is called the Citizens Commission on Hunger in New England.
I take it if you say you go hungry a lot, it's just not quite enough to keep going.
The commission is funded by foundations and other private sources.
You know what we're trying to do is just get the information,
The doctors have been studying hunger throughout New England, visiting people in their homes and talking to them in soup kitchens like this one. Their study has convinced them that hunger is not only an increasing problem in America, in some areas it's become an epidemic disease.
We have done our research, we have gone out into this region of the nation, and we know that hunger is a widespread problem. The malnourished little...
Thank you. Widespread. It's not a black, it's not a white. It is a widespread problem through each and every race known to man.
Girl that I held in my lap in New Haven, Connecticut a few weeks ago fell through that safety net. There clearly are hungry and malnourished people in this nation. The problem is growing again. It is a serious problem, and I don't believe that the American people ultimately will ignore that. We are...
Dr. Brown's commission report will be issued at the end of this month, but it is already clear that it conflicts with some findings of President Reagan's Commission on Hunger.
Both as individuals and as a group, we have personally visited all geographic regions of the country.
This past week, the President's Commission released its report saying it cannot document how serious a problem hunger really is. The chairman is J. Claiborne LaForce.
Institutions.
These states such as Mississippi, that no longer has any hunger counties at all. For the first of our reports, we go to Ned Potter, who is in Scotland County, Missouri, in the heart of the nation's breadbasket, in the heart of what now may be the nation's hunger belt.
Wayne Burkhardt and his wife Darlis, who grow food, would seem unlikely to need food stamps. But as the farm economy worsened, they say, they had to swallow their pride and seek government help.
Our way of life has really changed. We've got to learn to live on lots less. I can't borrow a dime. My credit's gone.
In Scotland County, the Burkhardt's feelings are not unusual, but what they did was. The new study shows that only 17% of those who are eligible for food stamps here actually get them. Many Missouri farmers say they've always been self-reliant. This is the local office of the Missouri Department of Social Services, but to a lot of people around here, the sign might as well say Department of Welfare, and that's a word that carries a strong stigma.
All right, so listen up. State Farm was trying to charge me $197.
Remember, like and subscribe and drop those teacups in the chat. We are exploring the early days and early times of food stamps. I'm actually going to break this down into two segments tonight. So I'm going to take a break in between. I'm going to do like the 70s to the 90s, or the 70s and 80s, and then I'm going to come back and do the 90s to the 2000s, okay?
Someone see them spend their food stamps.
Nobody is actually starving in Scotland County, but 20% of the population lives below the poverty line. Beulah Corwin says she never thought about asking for help until this week when, with her husband in the hospital, she went to get free government food.
I just didn't want to because I know there's lots of people that have gone hungry, you know.
Sometimes bureaucracy is as much an issue as personal pride. The Burkhardts, who got food stamps, were disqualified last year because, though deeply in debt, they bought a car on credit.
I'm not making it. I've lost the farm and lost half my machinery. I'm existing.
Existing, yes, but in hard times, people are having to make the difficult choice between food and self-esteem. Ned Potter, CBS News, Scotland County, Missouri.
Could you imagine if food stamps disqualified you today because you had a car? If you have a car, say in 2025, and they disqualified you for food stamps because you had one.
Missouri.
Out of sight, out of mind describes the situation of poor people in America. Katrina blew the cover off a reality.
Totally government-oriented initiative to help fight poverty.
I hear a little lip service, but not very much beyond that.
Bob Greenstein of the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities worries that once the waters ebb, it will be business as usual in Capitol Hill. That means scaling back benefits and cutting more taxes.
But what I'm hearing is the well-connected, well-financed, heavy-hitter lobbyists taking items off of their long wish lists for like a new round of corporate tax cuts. But on the poverty front, I'm not hearing beyond vague philosophical expressions of concern.
But despite all the partisan bickering, the studies, and the programs, no one has a sure answer. One conservative will be looking for clues among Katrina's own victims, forced out of an inner city that he says helped keep them poor.
If those neighborhoods are as they were described, if the lack of jobs is as it was described, if the New Orleans schools were as abominable as people say, this could be one small silver lining to an otherwise large catastrophe.
That's a remarkable thing to say.
Well, I think it's a statement about how terrible some places are to live in America.
That's a heck of a way to get a trip and to be relocated because of a disaster.
They wouldn't give us water.
And still reeling from those images of despair, University President Battle finds it hard to find any silver lining in Katrina unless it were to become a national wake-up call.
I would hate to see us ignore a lesson. I'm not going to certainly quote biblical scripture, but something happened for a reason. If that wasn't Revelations, I don't know what is.
I think 20 years from now, we may look back either positively or with a lot of regret and say, you know, we had this moment. You could have a broader political conversation. The nation was in shock over the hurricane. Did we take advantage of it? It's a test for the whole nation.
To 10% of all U.S. food stamp funds. Phil Jones, CBS. Party Democrats seemed resigned to little more than making warnings.
I think practically everybody around this table supports the president in his objective, but some of us question the route by which he hopes to reach that objective.
But in the House, where Democrats still reign, there were still more challenges, more mini-spats with the Reagan Budget Director Stockman, this time over reports that he spent about a minute making a far-reaching decision on the future budget and scope of the Federal Trade Commission.
Did this decision of great moment, did it have the due deliberation and consideration that such a major decision is entitled to?
Within the constraints of the time that we had available, I would say yes, we made
That's not a satisfactory answer.
The food stamp program, the cost more than doubled in the past 3 years. Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman Helms carried the administration's case today for about a $2 billion cut in the food stamp program next year. Helms claimed the truly needy need not worry.
These truly needy, the elderly, the blind, the disabled, working families with incomes below the poverty line, have nothing to fear from either this administration, this chairman, or this committee.
The governor of Puerto Rico.
Now, do any of the things sound the same? Okay, like we say, what goes around must come around, and what was once will be again, right? Okay, so a lot of the talking points that we hear right now are the same things that we're hearing today in 2025, okay?
Appeared on behalf of his truly needy, and there was a warning of repercussions if Puerto Rico is cut by 25% in food stamp funds.
Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of economically disadvantaged Puerto Rican families would do exactly what an earlier generation did after World War II. They would migrate to the mainland to seek here the opportunity which a misguided national policy had denied them at home.
But even with that warning, Puerto Rico remains Exhibit A for all those who are demanding major cuts in the food stamp program, since 57% of Puerto Rico's population is on food stamps, and that amounts to 10% of all U.S. food stamp funds. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
School officials from 28 of the nation's biggest cities said
Mexican workers entering America unlawfully represent the most nagging, if not the biggest point of conflict between the United States and Mexico. Some illegal aliens are currently employed at this San Antonio salvage yard, which has been raided several times by immigration officials. However, their employer, Alton Newell, keeps hiring them and denies that they take jobs that U.S. citizens want.
Let me say it truthfully, with our welfare and food stamp program here, there's a lot of people that don't want to work. If we didn't have any illegal aliens, I would say we would be short of labor, because our people...
Are we not hearing some of the same talking points? A lot of people in America, even in the 80s, did not want to work. Let's sip that tea. Swallow that down, like I'm about to do on this Gold Peak. Okay? They did not want to work. Hence, why immigrants from America were allowed to come over, because they would work for small amounts, or either food stamps. They'd even still work and be under the poverty level to qualify for food stamps.
People are not looking for this kind of work. And like I said a while ago, with welfare and food stamps and unemployment compensation, a lot of people don't want to work.
There is the view that America would have a tough time without the undocumented workers. There is also the view that Mexico would have even a tougher time with them.
Mexico has a typical third world economy, in the sense it's a very poor industrial infrastructure, has a very low impoverished base. It is not industrializing or creating jobs or opportunity nearly as fast as its population is rising. Consequently, they need the safety valve. They need to...
And we know that to be true because it's not a stereotype, it's a proven fact that Mexicans populate very fast.
And some millions of their young people to work in the United States, where they not only get rid of them and their unrest at home. Remember, 40% of the Mexican working population is either unemployed or underemployed. It's a figure, it boggles the mind. If we do not help Mexico...
Do we not see how we are not moving the scale? We're not even tipping it. A lot of the same demographics of people, percentages, talking points are still here today. 40% of this population is down. 40% of this population is doing this.
Go, in some sense, solve this demographic time bomb. Then we can absolutely destroy a regime such as Lopez Portillo's. And what we would get would probably be much less to our liking.
They are so desperate, so hungry to come here that they are willing to risk anything, even death. Many died last year after the guides they hired to protect them from the Border Patrol abandoned them in the scorching desert. 16-year-old Santiago Flores is an illegal alien from Matamoros. He says he paid some men $600 for safe passage across the border to the U.S., but that he went without food for 5 days during the dangerous journey. Serafin Rodriguez earns $5.75 an hour in San Antonio as a construction worker. In his Mexican hometown, he could find...
Cladis makes sure there are lots of sale items and says he does...
Their families. Nearly 28 million rely on food stamps for an average benefit that comes to only about $24 a week for each person. Many are living hand to mouth, month to month. Seth Doan reports now on The Other America.
Midnight might not seem like an ideal time to open grocery store doors, but on the first of the month, it is. On that afternoon, the aisles were almost empty at One Stop Foods on Chicago's South Side. because most of the patrons rely on food stamps, and their monthly allotments had run dry.
They're struggling to get through the month. And so the minute they get their money back, they come shopping.
The benefit money is electronically deposited on a debit card. For many here, it comes just after midnight on the 1st of each month. For Maranatha Mays, this moment can't come soon enough.
How long has it been since you last were able to come to the store and buy food?
Like 2 weeks ago.
She lost her job 6 months ago, and her family of 6 only gets $369 a month in food stamps.
It really cut me out.
A family of 6 in the 80s, got $360. What does a family of 6, let's ask ChatGPT, what does a family of 6 receive in food stamps? A family of 6 receives varying SNAP benefits, but generally around $1,400 to $1,600 plus monthly, depending on income, expenses, and state, with figures showing around $1,421 max or $950 for average for 2026. Though benefits vary by household net income, with lower income families getting more and higher income families getting less, up to the maximum. For 2026 estimates, around $1,500. Compare that to 1980. In 1980, a family of 6 only received around $350. Okay. I can see reasons why food went scarce closer to the ends of the month, even with, food being cheaper, like you see in the back here. Let me see if I can blow up my screen. No. However have you. 59 cents for a jar of pickles, things like that.
I'm really not eating.
Why?
Because my kids have to eat before me.
Getting through the month is a stretch.
You notice the cost of food going up?
Yeah, because you could buy a buck of cheese for 10, now it's like 13. Milk used to be like 2, now it's almost 5.
The Midnight Madness is a come-as-you-are event.
And make sure you fill that up.
Owner Dennis Cladis makes sure there are lots of sale items and says he does more volume in the first few hours of the month than in entire days at the end.
They're trying to make the same ends meet on the same money while prices go up. So it's an indictment on what's been going on.
Food stamps are only designed to supplement food budgets, but now the working poor are relying on them more and more.
Do you worry that a lot of the stuff you're buying isn't the healthiest?
Well, what we see, like we say, this is a clip from the 1980s, okay? However, them buggies are filled up just like in 2025.
Yeah, but I know it's cheap.
And they need to spend their cash elsewhere.
I mean, if you don't pay ComEd, you're going to get your lights cut off. If you don't pay people gas, your gas going to get cut off. Okay.
Carolyn Watkins makes about $25,000 a year as a dental technician. But supporting 2 kids, 1 job doesn't do it.
It's just crazy out here. People are doing what they have to do to make a living.
Whoever making it, who making these prices go up, they need to make them go back down.
Michael Jordan and his partner Renee Bishop are shopping for the month. They both work in healthcare, but their salaries aren't feeding their kids, and food stamps don't last. But they're not shy about asking for help.
How much is the cost of this stuff? The cost of milk and what you're buying?
It's costly high. I'm about to ask you for a little food change.
Can you imagine today? Let's look at how much a healthcare professional makes in 2025. How much does a healthcare professional make in 2025 a year? Healthcare professional salaries vary from 70,000 to over 400,000 for the specialists, okay? So most healthcare professionals are making at least $70,000 a year in 2020 and higher, okay? Back in 1980, they were making less than $25,000 a year.
But change isn't coming anytime soon. The government won't consider raising food stamp allotments until October. Seth Doan, CBS News, Chicago.
I see they got those carts filled up, though.
Of the 1930s, the distribution of government surplus foods that farmers couldn't sell and the hungry couldn't buy. The program lasted for decades, but it never provided adequate nourishment. People got whatever happened to be in surplus. Things like cornmeal and peanut butter and non-fat dry milk, never meat or fresh vegetables or fruit. The inadequacy of the program was proven in the late 1960s, when Americans were shocked by reports of widespread hunger and malnutrition across the country. A CBS News documentary, Hunger in America, showed the human toll in 1968. The government replaced the commodities program with food stamps, which could be used in stores to buy at least some of the food people wanted. By the 1970s, it was widely agreed that food stamps, along with child nutrition programs, had worked in wiping out the worst instances of hunger. But the food stamp program has been cut back in the past 2 years. And there are long lines again for government surplus food, cheese and butter this time. Dr. Jean Mayer, a noted nutritionist, was active in helping to bring about the food stamp program.
It's very heartbreaking for people like me who've been so involved in seeing those programs develop, helping them to develop, seeing them succeed, to see us going backward at this point, and going back to a situation where there is hunger in America, not to the same extent as in '69, but more than 2 or 3 years ago.
Under the Reagan administration, the food stamp program has already been reduced by $1.5 billion, with nearly 1 million recipients dropped. Now the administration is proposing further cutbacks to save an estimated $1 billion more.
Mom, I just want a $500 gift card.
As they are paying bills, remember to drop down and like and subscribe. Drop those
The nutrition service of the Department of Agriculture.
We need to target the dollars in the food stamp program so that we can make sure that all of them are going to the truly needy and the elderly, and that we're not having them frittered away in waste and fraud.
The food stamps, by and large, go to people who...
Same problems, right? Just a different error. Same exact problems, which we're going to get into in our next part 2.
really can't make it as it is.
The average food stamp benefit is 47 cents per meal for each recipient. The maximum is 70 cents a meal for someone with no other resources. Government officials say that amount is enough to keep up with food prices.
The food stamp program was not intended to provide everybody 100% of their food needs for the month. It was intended to be a supplement for those who have some earnings. For the absolutely destitute, it provides a full amount of food stamps each month, which should be enough under the Thrifty Food Plan to get through a month.
But at soup kitchens and charities in high unemployment areas like Cleveland, Ohio, the food lines are jammed with people who say they run out of food stamps after the middle of the month. The Salvation Army and other agencies say they just can't keep up with the demand. A hunger program run by Protestant churches in Cleveland is so swamped with applicants, each person may apply only once every 2 months.
No, I said that was butter.
We have reports from the Hunger Center of people trying to live on potatoes for a week or trying to vary the diet of spaghetti by putting the spaghetti on top of bread.
We've been having a lot of pasta dishes.
I don't know about y'all, but spaghetti on top of bread is so good. It's fulfilling. It is delicious. I never knew that that was a way to combat hunger, but I knew that that was a way to add to the fulfilling need for feeling full. Eating spaghetti is to add some bread. A nice garlic bread or however have you always goes good with spaghetti.
Which is fine, but macaroni one night and spaghetti the next is, not very healthy for the children.
Mary Sue and Brian Keller have 8 children to feed. Not easy.
Woo! 8 children. That's a lot of kids. Some families are just bigger than others and have a bigger need to provide nourishment for their family. I am one of them. And so I completely understand where that, food necessity lies.
Someone laid off from his job as a machinist for 9 months. Not easy with less than half the old salary and unemployment benefits, and a mortgage and utilities to pay in a house in suburban Euclid, Ohio. The Kellers say that no matter how hard they try, they can't stretch $197 a month in food stamps much beyond.
They get $197 a month for 8 children in the 80s. We wouldn't even fathom. Our kids would eat for a day. If you had 8 children in a home in 2026, living off of $197 a month in food stamps, they would eat for one day.
A couple of weeks. When they run out, the Kellers, who once worked as volunteers at church charity group,
I give it a week because some of us know how to make, good meals on a few dollars. So I may stretch it out a week between 8 children.
Have to turn to the church themselves for food. They wonder what will happen when the unemployment benefits run out.
You worry about where are you going to start cutting? Anybody has to cut a budget. When you cut the food budget, what are you going to cut first? The kids' milk or the bread or the...
The recent talk of the economy turning around is just talk so far for the Kellers and people like them. Their immediate concern is what they'll put on the table next week and the weeks after that.
All right, we're going to leave it off there, Tea Talkers. So that's going to conclude our part 1. I'm not quite sure if I'll be back tonight to do a part 2. So drop your comments down in the chat. Today we covered from the 1930s when food stamps first started, what that looked like up until 1980. So our next part 2 will be our next show, and that's going to be from the 90s to current, okay, of how the food stamps have evolved, what talking points are remaining the same, and how our economy is dealing with that. Thank you so much for watching Tanisha Talks Teas on the food stamps in our economy today and the harsh realities of it. Remember, stay safe and always stay sipping. Thanks for watching. Remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's a blessing. Keep your teacups filled and ready for my next upload. Until then, stay inspired and remember, always stay sipping.